Connor Bedard is becoming the player we thought he was always going to be.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Jack Bushman, also Blackhawks beat writer for Chicago Hockey Now. Do me a quick favor if you could, please go and show some support to Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram, as that's the latest account that I'm trying to boost up here and grow. Had to get a special Saturday episode out considering what transpired last night in Calgary. Even though we are now 24 hours removed at the time of this recording, still felt like it would be better to do this here today instead of waiting all the way to Monday. But Connor freaking Bedard, oh my goodness, what a night from 98 to lead the Blackhawks to a 4-0 victory over the Flames. A big one that really helps get this road trip back on track. All of a sudden, the Hawks are 2-1 with only one game remaining in their trip. Incredible resiliency once again shown from this young group, and it was Connor Bedard who led the charge to a win last night, second consecutive win for the Blackhawks. Wasn't really as dominant of a performance as the final score might suggest. It was a pretty even contest, honestly, but the difference in this one was Connor Bedard being a game breaker and taking advantage of Calgary when they made their mistakes, and then Spencer Knight in net. He's a game breaker in his own right. Holy jumpin'. How good has this guy been in his first full season with the Blackhawks? I'll have more on Spencer Knight coming up on today's episode here in segment 2. Make sure to stick with me. But 4 points last night from Connor Bedard, 1 goal and 3 primary assists. He picks up his second 4-point outing in the last 11 days, extends his point streak to 7 games, and now has 15 points during that stretch, 6 goals and 9 assists, and he actually momentarily tied Macklin Celebrini for the NHL lead in points. The future is now in the NHL. 2 players who are seemingly playing with a huge chip on their shoulder as they try to crack Team Canada's Olympic roster. Celebrini would go on to add another point in the Sharks' 2-1 win last night to grab the solo lead once again. But Bedard still in solo second now with 22 points through his opening 15 contests. He's also tied for first in the NHL with 14 5v5 points on the year. Not to mention became the youngest player in Blackhawks franchise history to record 150 career points. Only a franchise that's 100 years filled with history. Also the 11th youngest player in NHL history, 11th youngest player in NHL history to reach 150 points. I mean, what more needs to be said about 98? As I've talked about time and time again on the show early on this season, this kid is simply a different beast, a different animal here in his third NHL campaign. He's faster, he's feistier, he's more responsible defensively, he's more dangerous than ever. He's simply better than ever and is really starting to make that major leap in his development. And as I said off the jump, he's becoming the player we always thought he was capable of being. And what I love, too, is it seems like Bedard is growing with each passing game. He's getting better as the games go on. The confidence that's being instilled inside of him with what he's doing right now. He's always had the belief, listen, that he's a special player. He's said it many times. He knows what he's capable of. But to actually go out there and do it has to just give him another level of confidence than he already had inside himself. Seriously, can't talk enough about how impressive Bedard has been to kick off the season, and also how fun it's been to watch this young group and him, what they're all doing together, and for Bedard to kind of stick it to some of the haters out there. Yeah, he absolutely looks like a generational caliber player. Let's go through Connor Bedard's performance last night up in Calgary. In the first period on the Blackhawks opening man advantage of the game, kicked off the scoring by finding Tyler Bertuzzi, a.k.a. the human backboard, a.k.a. the junkyard dog, in his office. Bedard's centering feed banks in off of Bertuzzi's shin pads. Perfectly placed backboard there by Bertuzzi. That put the Blackhawks ahead 1-0. Bert with his 4th power play goal of the season. Love to see him and Bedard really rifling and clicking together here on the man advantage. Also, of course, was Bertuzzi's 4th goal at the time in a 2-period stretch, staying absolutely red hot. And I love to see Bedard taking advantage of opposing mistakes. That was really the theme for him all night long, and the growth that he's shown on the man advantage as well early on this year. As you know, you want to see your most dominant players capitalize when you have that advantage. He's done that on a much better basis, even though the top power play unit hasn't been, maybe as consistent as we want. When they do execute and get that finished product, it's usually because Connor Bedard is the one leading the charge there. Then in the 3rd period, the game was tied 1-0 going into the final 20 minutes. Like I said, it was a pretty close, evenly contested matchup. But then in the 3rd, the Blackhawks broke it open as the Flames started to, take some risks and jumped up in plays, gave the Blackhawks a couple of odd man rushes with the wrong players on the ice to do it. Bedard sets up Bertuzzi once again early on in the 3rd period on a 2-on-1. Again, capitalizing on an opponent's mistake. Awesome pass from Bedard to find Bertuzzi at the left dot. His 8th goal of the season and 5th in the last 2 games for the human backboard. Although, to be fair, this time the puck did go in off of his stick. Also have to give a huge shout out to Andre Burakovsky for making an excellent chip pass in the defensive zone that sprang Bedard and Bert for this 2-on-1 rush. And what's also been super noticeable from Bedard so far this year has been the increase in foot speed. His top speed being clearly much improved than what it was in his first 2 seasons. We've seen the wheels plenty of times this year, but the wheels and how he was able to cruise through the neutral zone and make sure he got that 2-on-1 rush. Absolutely love that from Bedard. Perfect play recognition. As soon as the defender started to cheat over to him, he slides the puck over to Bert, which gives him a yawning cage to look at for his 2nd goal of the game. Speaking of Andre Burakovsky, he was the one who finished off another feed from Bedard later on in the 3rd period. 3-on-1 rush this time for the Blackhawks. An absolutely horrendous pinch from Joel Farabee, who I'll get into a little more on here in just a moment. But 3-on-1 for the Blackhawks. Bedard drops it to Burakovsky. He rifles a shot past Dustin Wolf for his 6th goal of the season. 3-0 Blackhawks. 3rd primary assist of the game for Connor Bedard. And just when it seemed like the night couldn't get any better, Bedard then pulled off one of the best highlights of his NHL career so far. And I felt like it was a culmination of all of his improvements that we've seen kind of in one play. Turns defense into offense with an excellent forecheck. And I've mentioned on the show recently how impressed I've been with the leaps in strides that Bedard has made in his defensive game. I talked in my recap episode after the win against Vancouver on Wednesday night. Love to see Bedard hounding opposing puck carriers and trying to step in the shooting lane to prevent Quinn Hughes from getting a dangerous shot off. This was a perfect example of Bedard showing improvements in all facets of his game. Turns defense into offense, forces a turnover on Morgan Frost as he's the last man coming up the ice for the Flames holding the puck, pokes it loose, and then a very subtle, and I don't know how many people really noticed this part of the play because the finish was so spectacular, but a heck of a maneuver. Just the skills that Bedard possesses are unbelievable. Pokes the puck through his own legs to give himself this partial breakaway opportunity, and then thanks for coming out, Dustin Wolf. A gnarly fake to the backhand, pulls it back to his forehand, tucks it into the yawning cage to put a stamp on one of the finest performances of his NHL career. His 8th goal of the season ties the junkyard dog Bertuzzi for most on the Blackhawks. As I said, 2nd 4-point game from Connor Bedard over the last 11 days. Loved his celebration, just kind of looking up into the Calgary faithful saying, "What? Are you not entertained, Calgary?" Oh my gosh, what an excellent night out of Connor Bedard. Great way to cap off an epic performance in Calgary. Blackhawks pick up yet another huge 2 points, which again moves them to 2-2-1 through the first 5 games of their current 6-game road trip. And they're now 7-5-3 on the season, which currently has them in a wild card spot. The kids can play. The kids are all right. And how about Connor Bedard looking like a true superstar here in his 3rd NHL season? All right, Blackhawks fans, there are my initial thoughts from Connor Bedard's incredible showing to lead the Hawks to a 4-0 win last night in Calgary. Coming up in just a moment here, still got to talk about the other big star of the night, Spencer Knight, and the other key takeaways from Scotiabank Saddledome. But first, I do got to talk to you all about one of today's sponsors, which is FanDuel. The NFL season is now well past the midway point, and FanDuel is still making sure you're ready for every kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. And what I personally love about FanDuel is that it's super quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. With same-game parlays, player props, and now more ways than ever to go and get in on the action. Are you ready to play? All you got to do is download the FanDuel app now, or you can simply check out FanDuel.com in order to get started. Again, that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet and get $300 worth of bonus bets when it wins. All right, as always, before I get into segment 2, just a quick reminder, if you're enjoying what you're watching here today on YouTube or on a regular basis, do me another quick favor, please. Go and smash that like button, subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. It's 100% free, will not cost you anything, and really does help me out in a massive way in growing my platform. But segment 2 here on today's episode, getting into some other takeaways from last night's excellent 4-0 win up in Calgary. Got to get into Spencer Knight. Finally getting his first shutout as a member of the Blackhawks, well-deserved and overdue. And I thought it was fitting that it came, just 2 days after he probably should have got that first shutout with Chicago. Unfortunately, a little bit of a poor decision by Artem Levshinov late in that game allowed the Vancouver Canucks to get on the board. But Spencer Knight follows that up with a 33 save shutout over the Flames. And as I mentioned in segment 1, this was a closer contest than the 4-0 final suggests, especially in those first 2 periods. And Knight was outstanding, as he's been for a majority of the season, to keep his team ahead going into the third, where the Blackhawks then really busted it open and grabbed control. And the Vezina level start to the season for Spencer Knight. I mean, it just keeps on going here, Blackhawks fans. He's now up to 6-3-2 in terms of his record, with a 2.33 goals against, .926 save percentage, and 1 shutout in his opening 11 starts of the year. And I'm not done with Spencer Knight and his impressive statistics. He's now first among all NHL goaltenders in goals saved above expected. He's first in the NHL in high danger saves above expected. So, and that was definitely clear and obvious in the game against Vancouver. There were a lot of dangerous opportunities that they got off on Knight, and he seemingly found a way to stop them all. He's also first among all NHL goaltenders in wins above replacement. He's third in high danger save percentage and fourth in the NHL in save percentage in general. He's been a game breaker of his own right, Blackhawks fans, and has been so instrumental in the Hawks getting off to this 7-5-3 start through their opening 15 games. And I mentioned going into the year, Spencer Knight was going to be a very pivotal factor in terms of what type of season it's going to be for the Blackhawks, because obviously they have a lot of young defensemen, not a lot of experience at back there. In general with the rest of their roster, right? The second or the third youngest team in the entire NHL. There were going to be a decent amount of games where Knight was going to be facing a lot of rubber just simply as a result of that. But with the way he's been able to play, he's turned some of those games that have been in the balance and in the last couple of years would have gone to the opposing squads. He's been a huge factor in flipping those now into wins. And part of that resiliency that we've seen from the Blackhawks, and after starting, 0-2-1 on this road trip, getting back-to-back victories, after the 0-2-1 start to the year, rattling off, 4 wins in 5 games after, Spencer Knight was really the one who was in charge of that up until Connor Bedard has kind of flipped this switch over the last couple of weeks. So it's been unbelievable what Spencer Knight has been able to do in net. And honestly, Blackhawks fans, maybe a little bit of a shame on me here, because when I went through the Blackhawks, Olympic chances, talking about Frankie Nazar for the United States and Connor Bedard for Team Canada. This was probably on the show about a week ago now. I mentioned what Frank Saravalli had to say when he joined the CHSN broadcast, saying it's still looking like it's going to be a long shot for both Bedard and Nazar, although he said Nazar between the two is probably the one who has the better chance. Well, for Bedard, I mean, there might be a change in mentality now. He and Macklin Celebrini both playing like they deserve a spot on that Canadian roster. I do still feel like, in terms of a fit down in Canada's bottom six, Celebrini has the edge over Bedard, but he's certainly making a strong case for himself, and so is Spencer Knight to be the number 3 goaltender for the United States. I honestly might have downplayed it a little bit last week, Blackhawks fans, and to be fair to myself, this was coming off of, a shaky performance against the Winnipeg Jets and wasn't as great against the Ottawa Senators in the 7-3 win. He was coming back down to earth a little bit there, which was likely going to happen considering the level that he was playing at early on. But now with these two performances, he's now stopped 76 of his last 78 shots. You heard the numbers I just went through. I still think it's an outside chance, but I wouldn't rule it out for Spencer Knight now being in the running for that third goaltender on the Americans roster. We know it's going to be Connor Hellebuck. We know it's going to be Jake Ottinger. And the other real three that are in consideration are Joey Decord, Jeremy Swayman, and Thatcher Demko. And between those three, Spencer Knight has definitely played at a higher level than each of them early on this season. Now, as I mentioned when I broke down this conversation last week, Spencer Knight was not invited to the Americans orientation camp over the summer. And not that that's the end all be all, right? Just because you weren't invited there doesn't mean you're not going to be on the roster. But I do feel like it makes it very difficult for Knight to accomplish, even considering how great a start to the season it's been for him. And I think one thing I should point out too, he's only 24 years old, so there are going to be opportunities for Spencer Knight to be donning the red, white, and blue, which he has done a couple of times in his career. An incredible gold medal performance to help the Americans win the World Junior Championship, I believe, back in 2020 or 2021. So he has American experience. He's definitely on their radar now with the way that he's been playing this season. I still don't necessarily expect Knight to be named that number 3 goaltender, but who knows how things are going to go over these next couple of weeks. And I'm definitely not ruling it out considering how good Spencer Knight has been all season long, really, but especially over these last 2 contests. Outside of the games, like I said, against Winnipeg and against Ottawa, he's had his A-plus stuff seemingly every other night. Also wanted to make sure to give a bigger shout out to Tyler Bertuzzi. I know I mentioned it was another 2-goal game from him during segment 1, but I was mostly gassing up Connor Bedard in that segment. Gotta give Tyler Bertuzzi, the junkyard dog, the human backboard, some love in his own right, because going into the season, I said, if you all remember from my Blackhawks bold prediction episode, I predicted it was going to be a monster season for Tyler Bertuzzi, definitely better than last year and maybe even the best year of his career, because I felt like he was in a really good position on the second line along with Frankie Nazar. He was going to get a chance on the top power play unit, and despite the Blackhawks not having a ton of talent on their top man advantage last year, he still potted 10 power play goals. Jeff Blashill comes in, and he's obviously familiar with Bertuzzi going back to their time in Detroit. And Bert has just absolutely been everything we've wanted him to be when we made that signing. And it's kind of funny how he and Connor Bedard are clicking. If you've been listening to Locked On Blackhawks for the last year and a half now, this is what I imagined Bedard and Bertuzzi doing with one another. They didn't really get all that much time. Bert didn't get much of an opportunity on the top line last year, got bumped up last night because of an injury to Frank Nazar, which I'll get to here during segment 3. But he and Bedard are just really clicking right now. And I love to see Bert making an impact on the man advantage. 4 power play goals for him already on the season, already up to 8 goals in general. On pace for a 30-goal campaign is Tyler Bertuzzi. On pace for a 40-goal campaign. I don't know if that's going to keep up, but I just love everything that Tyler Bertuzzi brings to the table, man. The hustle, the effort, the grit is so needed. His net front presence has been really big, I think, in Connor Bedard. Taking that next step on the man advantage and having that net front presence, I've always thought would be a really good match along with Bedard, just considering the puck skills that he has and the playmaking. And I also know Bertuzzi, he loves playing for Jeff Blashill. And there was, after a win a couple of weeks ago at the UC, Blashill really talked highly about Tyler Bertuzzi and called him a foxhole guy, saying, he's the type of guy you want in your foxhole. I'm sure Bertuzzi heard that. And I'm sure, considering the relationship they had in the past, hearing that type of stuff makes you want to absolutely run through a wall for your coach when he gives you that type of praise. And Bertuzzi, that's all played out into effect on the ice as well. He's now up to 12 points, 8 goals, 4 assists through his opening 14 games. I believe I predicted 57 or 58 points for Bertuzzi this year on my Blackhawks bold prediction episode. Might be lowballing him a little bit there if he's able to keep up this pace and continue clicking with Connor Bedard, especially on the man advantage. Also want to give a shout out to Andre Burakovsky, who keeps impressing early on in his Blackhawks tenure. 2 points for him last night, 1 goal and 1 assist, now gives him 12 through his opening 14 games with Chicago. I definitely feel like Connor Bedard is making Andre Burakovsky better just with the level that he's playing at, right? And it's kind of been crazy to think about Bedard in 3 years. In his rookie year, he made Philip Kurashev nearly a 60-point player. Not made, but definitely aided in Philip Kurashev having a career year, who, by the way, is playing really well with the San Jose Sharks right now. Last year, Ryan Donato scores 30 goals playing up on the top line with Bedard, and definitely Donato deserves a lot of that credit, but playing along with number 98 didn't hurt, I'm sure. And to see Andre Burakovsky kind of revitalizing his career early on here with the Blackhawks after 3 pretty down seasons in a row with the Seattle Kraken, it has been wonderful to see, but it's also been a result of Andre Burakovsky elevating his own game as well. And I just love the pace that he plays with for a big man. He's got some really soft mitts, which has honestly kind of surprised me. And then the defensive plays that he's been making. I talked on the recap show after the win over Vancouver, made some excellent efforts on the back check to break up some plays. Well, how about the play in the defensive zone from Burakovsky last night to go and spring Bedard and Bertuzzi on that 2-on-1 rush? Those little plays make a world's difference in this game. And Burakovsky's done a really good job of making those types of plays and really thriving as he's been given a top line, top power play unit opportunity here with the Blackhawks. Really good stuff out of Andre once again last night. And then I also definitely had to be sure to mention how much I enjoyed the Blackhawks really setting the tone early on in this contest. Frankie Nazar went down, chopped to the ice by Joel Farabee, who was not a good showing from Joel Farabee last night. And the Flames in general, even going back to last year, I found clips on social media. They love taking runs at the Blackhawks young players. Martin Popsisil last year, I don't know if some of you may remember, I actually retweeted the clip on my Talkin' Hockey account. Make sure to go and check it out on X if you don't, so you don't miss out on any of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. But Pospisil last year had a shoulder to the chin of Connor Bedard that was definitely egregious, then went and laid like an unnecessary big hit on Frankie Nazar. I don't know what it is about these Flames teams, but a little bit dirty they were playing last night, and obviously in a game between these teams last season. Didn't think it was a really good play by Joel Farabee to go and whack Nazar down to the ice. He took a little bit of an awkward tumble, slow to get up, and then unfortunately wasn't able to return for the rest of the contest. But you know what I love? Colton Dach on the next shift, going and challenging Joel Farabee and easily overpowering him in a scrap. I mean, Colton Dach is a massive human being, and that was quick work for him in that fight. Then, early on in the second period, Mackenzie Weegar, kind of the same story here from the Flames. Uyghur recognizes Oliver Moore's skating up the wing with his head down a little bit, goes and takes a run at him. Moore did a really good job of avoiding that check and getting out of the way, but immediately Alex Vlasic recognizes that, goes and beelines at Mackenzie Weegar. And listen, Vlasic, even though he's 6'6", he's not someone who's really known to be chucking fists around, but almost in a Louis Crevier type of style when he stepped up and fought Caden Gooley for the hit that he had on Frank Nazar in the Blackhawks home opener. You got to be willing to defend your boys, and the Blackhawks have done that every single time so far this year. Love that type of stuff out of Alex Vlasic, and thought he handled himself pretty well in that fight with Weegar. And then Nick Foligno, love the overall recognition, right? Weegar goes and takes that run at Oliver Moore. Farabee knocks down Frankie Nazar, and all the stuff that stemmed from the contest last year between these two squads. Well, Foligno says, you know what? You want to go and take a run at our young players? I'm going to go and do the same at yours. Goes and lays a hit on Connor Zary, which I didn't think was a bad hit. He just kind of took a weird fall into the boards. The Flames obviously didn't like it. And then he also made a real big hit on Zane Parekh, which, again, was clean, shoulder on shoulder into the glass. Unfortunately, looked like Parekh went into the boards a little oddly and was not able to return to the contest as well. But just the way these Blackhawks stick up for one another, won't get pushed around, setting the tone, setting the new culture that is built here in the locker room. I thought this was a really satisfying win last night, obviously with what Bedard did and what Spencer Knight did, but just with the way that the Calgary Flames were handling themselves on the ice. I mean this, I don't really know how I mean this. You can see why they're a bad team, right? Joel Farabee, a horrible pinch at the blue line. The Rinkside General, who's one of my favorite Blackhawks YouTube accounts and accounts on X as well. Go and show some love to the Rinkside General. But he posted on X this morning, like, what a boneheaded play it was from Joel Farabee. And really outside of the Matt Coronado and Jonathan Huberdeau line, Calgary was pretty gross in this game. Coronado, by the way, probably saw Spencer Knight in his nightmares last night because he had 11 shots on goal. None of them obviously found a way to squeak through Knight. But outside of that top line for the Flames, it was some pretty bad hockey out of Calgary. Some really egregious and nasty offsides. Like I said, can see why they have the worst record in all of hockey and kind of played a scumbag brand of hockey last night. But that made it even sweeter to go in, stick it to them with a 4-0 victory, snapping their momentum after they had won 2 wins in a row. Now we got 2 wins in a row in our own back pocket and have a chance to make it a winning road trip, believe it or not, when they return to action tomorrow night in Detroit. And speaking of that, Blackhawks fans, coming up in just a moment, I'll get into a quick preview of tomorrow's matchup against Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat, and the Red Wings. Segment 3, the Blackhawks finally wrap up their long road trip tomorrow afternoon when they face off with Patty Kane, Alex DeBrincat, and the 9-6-0 Red Wings at Little Caesars Arena with puck drop coming at 12 p.m. Central Time, which on a Sunday, man, really grinds my gears a little bit there. As someone who's looking forward to watching the Bears hopefully keep the momentum going after just a ridiculous win over the Cincinnati Bengals last week. They got the New York Giants. It's going to be bear weather as we might even get some snow tomorrow. And of course, the Blackhawks are playing the Red Wings at noon. I have a huge fantasy football matchup going down, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But speaking, getting into a breakdown on Detroit, they got off to a roaring start to the season. One of the best teams in the NHL early on, but have now lost 4 games in a row coming into this one. So 2 teams who are kind of on the opposite side of the momentum right now. The Blackhawks, 2 big wins consecutively to really salvage this road trip. And then the Red Wings don't have a win so far here in the month of November and are reeling a little bit after their strong start. Patrick Kane did, by the way, return to the Red Wings lineup on Friday in a 4-1 loss to the New York Rangers. Had an opportunity to put a puck into one of the most empty nets he's ever faced in his entire career and somehow wasn't able to find a way to stick it home. But Kane did finally come back after missing a handful of games due to an injury on Friday night. Should be good to go for a reunion against the Blackhawks, which, by the way, 4-0-0 are Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews against the Blackhawks since departing the organization. So sure, the Hawks would love to go and finally get that win over a familiar face tomorrow afternoon. For Kane on the season, he's only played in 6 of Detroit's 15 games, does have 2 goals and 3 assists for 5 points. Alex DeBrincat, Hasn't been the goal scoring start to the season that you come to expect from him. He has 4 goals in the opening 15 games, but does have 11 assists for 15 points, which makes him the second leading point getter on the Red Wings roster behind only captain Dylan Larkin. One other thing I noticed about the Red Wings, not really the strongest goaltending group that they have. And I thought it was kind of an interesting decision made by Stevie Yzerman and this front office to go with a combo of John Gibson and Cam Talbot in between the pipes. I mean, I would think it has to be the oldest goaltending duo in the entire NHL. Both of them, for Gibson, he has a 3.03 goals against average. Talbot has a 2.92 GAA. Nothing horrible there, but both have a save percentage well below 900 at this point in time. Gibson, who's 4-4 on the season, has an 890 save percentage, while Talbot, who's actually 5-2, has a .891 save percentage. So even though the goals against aren't too shabby there, that's kind of, I always think, more so a little bit of a team stat. Save percentage is more indicative, truly, I believe, of how a goaltender is playing. So, like I said, not exactly the strongest goaltender group for the Red Wings, even though they definitely have the experience. And with the Wings coming into this one with 4 consecutive losses, the Hawks coming in with 2 consecutive wins would be a real big one to go and nab before they finally return to Chicago. As far as the projected lineups, Emmett Finney, Dylan Larkin, and Lucas Raymond projected to be the first line according to NHL.com's preview that they've already dropped for this game. Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane expected to be the wings on the second line, with Chicago native JT Compher playing the center position. He seemingly always finds a way to wind up on the stat sheet when he plays his hometown club. So if you're a betting man, I would go and wager a point on JT Compher tomorrow. Andrew Kopp, Marco Casper, Mason Appleton, the projected third line, and then James Van Riemsdyk, who quite honestly, I forgot a little bit that he was still in the NHL. Fourth line center is Michael, don't call me Dennis Rasmussen. And then the brother of Arvid Soderblom, Elmer, is projected to play the fourth line right wing spot tomorrow against Chicago. Defensively, Simone Edvinsson and Mo Seider. What a potential future defensive pairing that could be for Detroit. Ben Sherratt and Axel Sandin Palika, who was incredible over in the SHL last year, now with the Wings in North America. And then Travis Hamonic and Andreas Johansson rounding things out on the back end, with John Gibson projected to get the start. For the Blackhawks, their lineup is really going to be determined by what's going on with Frankie Nazar. I mentioned chopped down to the ice by Joel Farabee in the first period on Friday night. Wasn't able to return for the rest of the game, which definitely had a lot of us Blackhawks fans worried, but a huge sigh of relief after getting an update from head coach Jeff Blashill following the contest, saying it's only a day-to-day issue for Nazar, and didn't even rule him out for this matchup against the Red Wings, who, by the way, are Frankie Nazar's hometown team, as he, of course, grew up in Detroit, played at the University of Michigan. So this is one he'd love to get back in the lineup for, but undoubtedly the Hawks are not going to be rushing their stud 21-year-old forward if he's not 100% healthy. Assuming that Nazar isn't going to play tomorrow night does put the Blackhawks in a little bit of a tough predicament, because that would take them down to or they'd be without 2 of their top 3 centers, as Jason Dickinson is on injured reserve, already back in Chicago. Nazar has been the second line center all season. Dickinson been the 3C when he's been healthy. So that is going to make things a little tough for the Blackhawks at the center ice position. Tyler Bertuzzi, Connor Bedard, and Andre Burakovsky expected to be the top line. With Nazar going down last night, Bert jumped up on that top line, and obviously that worked really well. Teuvo Teravainen, Ryan Green, and Colton Dach, the projected second line right now for the Blackhawks, which, isn't exactly the second line you want to see. Green and Dach, even though Green's been up on the top line lately and handled himself well, those are guys usually down inside the bottom 6. Don't think there's going to be a change to the third line with Oliver Moore, Ryan Donato, and Ilya Mikheyev, although we'll see what Blashill wants to do if Nazar isn't going to be able to play. And if he isn't, that would mean Sam Lafferty would draw into the lineup for just the second time since the home opener back on October 11th. He's only played once in the last month, so maybe this, while we obviously want Nazar to play, this would be a good opportunity for Lafferty to get his feet wet and get the feeling of playing an NHL game once again. Alex Vlasic and Sam Rinzel think that's going to be the top pairing, although Rinzel has definitely gotten more sheltered minutes here as of late. Wyatt Kaiser and Artie Levshinov as the second pairing. Artie was still on the top power play unit, by the way, against the Flames, and picked up a secondary assist on Tyler Bertuzzi's opening goal. That now gives him 5 apples over the last 6 games, leading point scorer for all Blackhawks defensemen this year. Matt Grzelcyk and Connor Murphy. Matt Grzelcyk, man, has now been on the ice for 16 goals for to only 6 against at even strength. Has had a really sound last couple of games on this road trip. Connor Murphy as his stapled right-handed defensive partner, and that leaves Louis Crevier as the 7th defenseman. In goal for the Blackhawks, I'm guessing it's going to be Spencer Knight. I think this is one you really want if you're the Blackhawks. You're going to have a couple of days off Monday and Tuesday before you return to play at the United Center. I think you got to play the hot hand here, man. And Spencer Knight, in his one career start against the Red Wings, did stop 37 of the 38 shots that he faced. So I'm expecting to see number 30 in between the pipes for the 12th time in the Blackhawks opening 16 games when they face off with the Red Wings tomorrow at Little Caesars Arena. All right, that is going to take care of today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Be sure to subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. Follow Locked On Blackhawks for free as well. That way, you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes, regardless of where you are when they become available. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can follow me on X at Jack Bushman2. My Strictly Blackhawks account is at Talkin' Hockey, where you won't miss out on any of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until the next episode, everyone, enjoy the rest of your weekends. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.